So first up, you need to pick a character. Now, if this is your first time playing, you only have muscle unlocked. But later, by fulfilling specific requirements, you can unlock several other characters as well. For example, if you have enough physical or magical attack, you unlock the swordsman and the moon goddess respectively. And if you really like going fast, then you're going to be unlocking Zephyr sooner rather than later. In addition to this, each character can be leveled up using hero EXP. This is something you accumulate slowly as you play. They start with a very basic ability, so for muscle it is Iron Power, where if you have blue and above different stands, meaning you cannot use duplicates here, you gain bonuses up to the 4th stand. At level 2 he has Health Growth, so for every level he gains max health. Then Strength Growth, for every 2 levels, physical and magical attack power. A character's growth stats largely determines whether or not they're going to be good at scaling either physical or magical stands, so muscle can be used for both, whereas, say, the swordsman, you'll see sword practice gives physical attack and max HP, meaning he's probably not going to be very good at scaling magic stands. Then you have Heavy Punch. This is an active ability. Each of the characters has their own active ability, and from here it is mostly just enhancing the abilities that they have, making them better, or adding additional growth stats. But how the character plays doesn't change for most of them after the first few levels. So, Muscle, all about building health. Then Swordsman, physical attack. The Sword of Light has pretty good reach, and he synergizes with the Blade Warrior family. You will see a little gold icon on your stands that lets you know what the character synergizes with, if they synergize with a specific character. And since this gives physical attack growth from kills, you get both early game scaling in the attack growth and late game scaling in the physical attack growth from kills. Then there's the Moon Goddess, who of course has more magic scaling. She's very good for stands that use magic and also mage type stands. Pretty much exactly the same kind of bonuses as the swordsman, just exchange physical for magical. And then you have Fortune Cat, who synergizes with gold. As you pick up more gold, you will gain more stats, and you will gain Cat Shooting, which fires bullets that deal quite a bit of damage. Later on, you enhance things using treasure collecting, so the more money you get, the better. You even get more wealth for playing the cat, which allows you to unlock more rooms and explore more easily. And last up, level 10, when obtaining gold, attack speed increases based on the earned gold capping at 10 seconds. So if you earn enough gold in your run, you will have a permanent attack speed buff. Then you have Vampire, who's pretty interesting. He deals true damage, making it easy to scale either magical or physical stands. And all of this is based off of his max health. He is a health scaler, and he has a lot of health recovery. Meaning your health could look pretty low, could look very spooky, but you're just going to life drain back and not worry too much about the enemies around you. I've actually found Vampire is the tankiest character, or at the very least the character that is tankiest without specific items. And then you have Zephyr, who is all about going fast, also deals true damage through her wind blades, and personally I think Zephyr is the most fun character to play, with Vampire being the second most fun. But your mileage is gonna very much vary there, as I'm sure plenty of people love Fortune Cat, they love Muscle. I could see people liking all of these characters. At level 10, Zephyr gives you damage per movement speed, so going fast is not only good for literally running around, but also good for clearing out enemies quickly. So let's just take Vampire. After you pick a character, you need to pick a stage. You will start with only level 1 hero unlocked, but as you complete the different challenges, you'll unlock level 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth, and you will unlock the other areas such as the Ancient Forest and the Lava Valley. Eternal Dungeon is the easiest, Lava Valley is the hardest, so Lava Valley Challenge 6 is the hardest content in the game, and Eternal Dungeon Challenge 1 is the easiest content in the game. For the sake of example here, let's just go into a difficulty 3, basically the perfect midpoint. So when you first load in, you'll see various enemies and consumables. Because I have a level 10 character, I'm killing them all automatically. But normally what you'd have to do is walk over to them so that your stand can attack and kill them, well, manually. This is going to take a little bit of time to build up resources, and you want to look out for this shrine, because this is how you get more stands. The amount of resources you have here is based on killing enemies, clearing out monster nests, killing bosses, and also your meta progression, so you'll have less of this at the start. These are going to be all the stands available. They start as question marks. As you can see, there are some stands that I haven't actually fully merged, so they're still question marks for me. And you can merge 2 level 1 stands, like let's just say these revolver gunners. They are level 1. They merge to a level 2. You can also merge 2 level 2s into a level 3. That's how you get level 3 green stands. You can merge different types, though, into a blue stand. So if I wanted to make Wolf King, I would need to get a level 2 wolf and a level 2 pig. Then there are purple stands. So to make the One Punch Master, who's totally not inspired by anything, you would need a level 1 Financial Advisor and a level 2 Boxing King, who is obtained by merging 2 level 1 Boxing Kings, who are obtained by merging level 2 Bald and level 2 Infantry. So you would need 4 of these to get 2 of these, add in a Financial Advisor, and you get 1 of these. In general, green stands are weaker than blue, who are weaker than purple. But not all stands are created equal. For example, the Valkyrie stand does a lot of damage with Blade Storm, whereas the Beast Tamer probably isn't going to be doing as much raw damage. However, his ability, Hat Trick, gives +5 magic power, meaning you will get a permanent bonus to your stats if you have this stand. And the same is very much true for lower level stands. Office Worker, for example, increases your gold income. The Blacksmith increases your ore income. And the Pig gives you one of the following attributes, so max health, physical power, or magic power. The more cooldown you have, the faster the pig's going to be using abilities, or any of the characters actually. And higher level pigs give more bonus stats. Then of course there's Zhu Baizhe, who I'm sorry I'm probably butchering that name. Same effect as a regular pig, but a much stronger end result with +12 max health, +6 physical attack, or +6 magic power. Hey, he does pretty good damage with his rake too, and can even stun enemies, making him one of the best stands for support. Now, after you have made a stand for the first time, it gets really easy because you can set them as a synthesis target. So if I want to make a werewolf and a wolf knight, all I have to do is set these as synthesis targets. Maybe I'll set this as a synthesis target and this. And now any of the stands that can be combined to make these higher level stands will automatically be highlighted, and I can go through and buy them. As you buy them, it costs 3 souls each, and it costs 1 soul to refresh the shop. So you can go through. Sometimes, if you have enough meta progression, you'll get talents that give you a chance to not spend souls, which is really handy. Gives you access to a lot more power. If you run out of things you want to buy, just hit for refresh, like so. And oh look, we can combine 2 bald, 2 soldiers to get 1 Boxing King. And now I can use a Boxing King to kill more enemies, to get more souls, to unlock more stands. As you kill enemies, and also as you break chests, you'll also get gold. This is used to unlock more rooms. Each time you do, you're prompted to choose a blessing. So in this case, I'm going to take swiftness because I want to move faster. The more rooms there are, the more resources that can spawn. As you can see, once I went into this room, there were a whole bunch of monster nests, treasure chests, and ores, which got me a lot of resources towards unlocking my next room and towards unlocking more powerful stands. Here we go, opening up another room. I could either take Ore Pile, a single short-term bonus, physical attack, again, kind of short-term bonus, this is just one time, flat amount. Or I could take Tranquility, +6 HP regen per second, which on Vampire isn't super relevant. However, here's where things get interesting, because some of the bonuses, like the EXP Orb drop rate, or HP growth, gives you a bonus that scales over time. If I take the HP growth, which I'm going to, every so often my vampire is going to gain more health. The longer the game goes on, the more value you get from something like HP growth. There's also growth on kill, which means for every 100 enemies you kill, you get the bonus. These are very, very, very good at the beginning of your run, but probably not the greatest if you're like 18 minutes in and about to wrap the run up. In that case, you'd want the flat bonus since it's useful now, whereas this is only useful over time. So I'll take this, open up a new room, start clearing stuff out. As you can see, my stands are now actively attacking and doing damage. If you want to know which stands are the most or least effective, you can always check here. And if you want to know how to scale your stands, you can always mouse over them. So right now I have all physical stands, meaning they are scaling off of my physical attack, not off of my magic power. And then there is the blacksmith, where you can forge items. Items, like stands, can also be combined. So let me just grab a bunch. If I hit this button, it will just combine all of them. Or if I say, well, I want to combine some of these, but not all of them, you can just drag and drop like so. The item you get as an end result is random. So it's not like these boots are going to always become boots. See, they became a bracelet. Something else to look out for are things like this item that start locked by default. That is an item that rolled a special attribute, in this case, skill cooldown. These special attributes are particularly impactful, as they can be things you wouldn't normally roll on the item. The simple bracer rolls attack speed, but now it has attack speed and skill cooldown. And remember, the lower the skill cooldown, the more you benefit from your stand's abilities. In general, I'd say you want to upgrade things. Higher rarity is better. However, something with a good special attribute, especially if it is a growth stat that will give value over time, is going to be more valuable than something that has low attributes that might be a little bit more useful for your build in the short term. Now, one of the most important things you can do with your stand setup is set yourself up for success later. For example, building a Tycoon early is really valuable because he randomly gives you 8 max health, 4 physical attack, or 4 magic power every time his ability triggers. The more triggers he has, i.e. the earlier in the game you get him, the more valuable he's going to be. He also gives you gold, which means you can unlock more rooms. Additionally, you can always use a stand like Pig. Pig here gives bonuses, and again, it's every time the ability triggers. So now I'm getting all sorts of free stats on all of these characters. As I build to, say, a more endgame version of a stat builder, someone who's going to buff me, another stat builder. Then later, I might say, all right, this is all good, but I want some more damage. So I will build the Buddha, because he scales off of a lot of the things that I'm already going to be building. He deals true damage. I'm going to have both physical and magical attack. I want to use him to get all sorts of extra damage. I'd set him as a synthesis target and start buying pretty much all the monks. Not going to do that quite yet, though. It's still a little bit early in the run. Similarly, for items, I'd be looking for things that give magic damage, and especially things that give growth stats, because remember, growth stats are really important. And if you're wondering why is the game going super speed, it's because you can speed it up, but more about that in the tips and tricks section. For now, in the early game, just focus on getting souls, getting gold, getting ore, building up your resources for the 8-minute mark when you confront the game's first boss. As you can see, all of these have special attributes. They're all doing something useful. The life drain maybe not quite as effective, but here magic power growth, those are good. That's permanent stats over time. Skill cooldown, more stand abilities, therefore more stats over time. Movement speed, I mean the faster you go, the faster you clear. Or growth, well, that helps to make more things, which ultimately does lead to more stats. Alright, we are just shy of 8 minutes in, and the first boss has spawned. I'm feeling very confident in being able to take this boss on, because I have a Wolf Knight, who is purple, a Tycoon, who is purple, and Zhu Baizhe, who is also purple. They're giving me a ton of extra stats and a ton of extra damage. But if you do not have 3 purple stands, which, especially as you are progressing, or if you're on higher difficulties and struggling with damage, you won't. Don't worry, you can do it with far less. In fact, on lower difficulties, you can do it with all blue stands. Just keep in mind that you will really want some items to bolster your stats if you are using all blue stands. Remember, your character's power ramps over time. You start pretty weak, and you get very strong by the end. So, just to give an example, here's the bear. He starts with a wave of energy, then he uses a charge attack. Most bosses have a charge attack or something similar. He uses a jump attack that generates a wave of projectiles. You want to position a little bit away from the boss, not so far that your stands aren't doing damage, but far enough that you're not just eating projectiles to the face. Of course, resources are still spawning. The game does pause, so let's take advantage of that, like so. Alright, nothing too interesting there. As a boss gets to below 50% health, he's going to gain new moves. This usually means doing the things that he did before, but faster and multiple times. There we go. Big ol' AoE wave, and boss down. So after boss wave, it gets pretty chill. You want to go back to farming, getting as much gold as possible, killing enemies for souls, popping monster nests for more resources, and opening up new rooms to do it all again. It is usually against the last boss that you have the real DPS check, because this thing is quite tanky. Even on difficulty 3, and even with having all the meta progression unlocked, level 10 character, it's not dying instantly, and you do only have 4 minutes to kill it. But if you're able to succeed, congratulations, you complete the challenge. Then, after your run ends, win or lose, it's time to assign some meta progression. Now, eventually, you get so many resources that you have all of it. But in the early game, you're going to have to pick and choose. I strongly recommend that you start allocating talents in the resources tree first, because resources are really the thing that's going to help you succeed early and take on that first boss and actually make progress. So for example, starting Soul, you can get plus 6 souls for a very low investment. You can continue filling out the tree, giving yourself more gold so you can instantly unlock rooms, more EXP so your character progresses faster, more ore so you can make more items, unlocking things like gold growth, chest and ore spawn speed, all these fun resources that unlock very quickly. This is also where you get the chance to freely recruit a new stand. And as you fill out points, you'll get access to the Ancient Leaf talents at the very end of each tree. These give you access to the Ancient Blessings, which allow you to reroll blessings and even get higher quality blessings. After you fill out the resources tree, I recommend the Defensive tree next, looking for things like health regen, movement speed so you can clear faster. Pickup radius is nice quality of life, but not super important. Then coming down here, reducing the chance of a white low quality blessing, gaining things like monster egg spawns. Targeting monster eggs is a great way to get more resources, all good. In the attack tree, you want to start out pretty limited. Basically, unless you are playing a true damage character, you would want to put your points all into physical, then go to attack speed, because attack speed is good for both, or all into magical, and then go into attack speed. But again, eventually you do just take everything. Fully unlocking the tree takes 640 points, which is quite a bit of grinding. And so now I'd like to go into a few tips and tricks that I've picked up playing the game, and then talk about a tier list with my favorite stands. Alright, so first up, as you unlock new rooms, target the monster nests. These give significantly more resources than the normal enemies within the room, and they're a great way to collect a few souls in the early game to really supercharge your stand progress. Also, pay attention to the color, shape, and size of the resources, because much like with stands, resources also have rarity, so a small chest is going to give you less gold than a big red shiny one. A purple ore or a purple monster nest is going to contain more rewards, and also in the case of a monster nest, more powerful enemies than the green version. Try to get the most value from each room possible, and quickly move between the rooms if you're trying to maximize your experience and total resource gains. Now, something that took me an embarrassing amount of time to remember: when combining stands, always set a synthesis target, because it's really easy to forget that, oh right, this is the guy I used for this one, and no, I don't actually want monkeys here, even though monkeys are usually really good. Something else that I made the mistake of a lot might just be a controller thing, but I was continually trying to combine stuff and clicking on the wrong thing, because no matter which icon you click on in the synthesis section down at the bottom, it always defaults to the first choice. So if I wanted to do the third thing and not the first one, I'd misclick and just go, yep, that's what I want to synthesize, by not paying attention. So pay a little bit of attention. If you're looking for a stand that you can't afford, remember, go ahead and lock it as you keep re-rolling the shop. Then there's the blacksmith, where you can also combine different items. And the blacksmith is really interesting because the lower ranked versions are technically more resource efficient, but your inventory space is limited, so eventually it's just going to be filled with junk if you try to stick with them forever. And also, as the game's timer progresses, the white version stops spawning for green, and then green stops spawning for blue. But basically, it takes 2 white items to make a green. White items cost 10 ore, green items cost 25. So you are paying 5 extra ore to craft the green items directly in exchange for saving inventory space. And the same thing happens when going from green to blue, because blue costs 60 ore, which, keep in mind, if you had crafted it with 2 greens, would only be 50, or if you had crafted it with 4 whites, only 40. But then you would need 4 specific white items, 2 of which are duplicates, to actually craft that one blue item, and you only have so much inventory space, so especially if you're trying to combine up then to purple, yellow, and red, you're not really going to be able to do it just crafting off of white items. It's just a fun little fact to pay attention to. Also, don't be afraid to use a lower rarity item that has a better special attribute over a higher rarity item that is bland, generic, and boring. And also, if you're using an important higher rarity item, like let's say boots, I always want to have a pair of boots for more move speed. Make sure to lock it so you don't accidentally combine it. Next up, if you want to go fast, or at the very least have combat play out much faster, you can speed the game up using X or left bumper. Personally, I found this to be a very bad idea against bosses. It's kind of hard to see what bosses are doing even at the best of times, and if a boss is going super speed, you really can't dodge the attacks because your stands are just filling the screen with projectiles, so is the boss, and you're going to get hit. If you're tanky enough, cool, absolutely do it. Otherwise, turn it on when clearing things, and then turn it off for the boss fights. Because the bosses have a particularly tight timer of 4 minutes, when you're new to the game, you're going to struggle with this. Later on, as you get more DPS and as you grasp how to build your stands for better synergy, this should get easier and easier. Then last up, stand building. Each stand has its own strengths and weaknesses. So if a stand gives you buffs, it is probably going to do less damage than a stand whose purpose is to do damage. If a stand scales purely off of physical attack, that's going to be very good if you have physical attack. If it scales purely off of magical attack, well, then it's probably not going to be so good if you're only stacking Fizz. You'd want to stack magic attack there. In general, the attack stands are pretty even. Some are certainly better than others, and the faster it attacks, generally the lower the numbers on the scaling, but since it attacks faster, that's fine. However, the stands that I've found to truly shine are the hybrid ones, that can scale off of both physical and magical attack. Because if you have a character that is passively building both of those up, you end up getting an incredible amount of power. Which is also why I like hybrid characters such as Vampire and Zephyr. These are also the characters that I've had the most success with. In particular, I found that physical builds were a little bit easier when I was new at the game, and then magic build became much easier after I started to understand the various interactions. Especially because Tycoon is magic scaling and you want Tycoon to generate wealth, so it just kind of works. So those are a few tips that I've picked up playing the game. Now onto the tier list where I talk about my favorite stands. Alrighty, so I'm going to be ranking these based on my personal experience and based on the stands that I like to build. So S tier is really, really strong, borderline mandatory, used in a lot of comps. That kind of thing. Really good, basically. A tier, I use it pretty frequently, but not always. B tier, it's niche. Like, if I'm only ever going to build this on a Fizz setup on Swordsman, it'd be B tier. If I'm only ever going to build it on a Magic setup, B tier. And C tier is, I don't build very often, or I don't find the stand to be too useful personally. Remember, this whole tier list is just my opinion, and so, also, I recommend that you rank some of your favorite stands down in the comments below if you're a more experienced player watching this video. Alright, so first up, Beast Tamer, who is going straight into C tier. Because if I just want magic attack and general stats, I find there are other characters who do that a little bit better. I don't like the screen clutter from the minions, and overall I don't find him to be super effective at dealing damage. And unfortunately, Bone Shield Sorcerer, defensive stand, also goes into C tier, because a lot of his abilities are really close range, and it's very hard to use close range abilities. On the other hand, Tycoon, straight into S tier. One of the best stands in the game, in my opinion, because getting gold early is super important. Also, when his ability goes off, not only do you get gold, you get stats. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal there. I've built him on so many physical comps, even though he doesn't scale off of Fizz, just for the fact that he gives really good stats. Then you have Buddha, who's also very powerful, one of the few stands in the game that does true damage, and scales off of both physical and magical attack. And so, as a result, Buddha also goes into S tier because I've had so many runs where Buddha just absolutely carries my damage. Next we have Elf Queen. She does a lot of really good AoE, but isn't so great for single target, which I think makes her a very good B tier choice. If you want to kill a lot of enemies, let's say you have a bunch of growth on kill, Elf Queen is a great choice. If you want to kill a boss, which is usually where your DPS is going to struggle, I haven't found her to be as useful as some of the other choices on this list. Guan Yu also goes into B tier. He is very good with high attack speed at increasing your physical attack. But on a magic attack build, or if you don't have a lot of investment into attack speed, he's not nearly as useful, making him more situational. Then there's Helicopter, which surprisingly does insane damage. I at first didn't believe how good this was, but yeah, Helicopter, really, really strong, super high attack speed, capable of dealing AoE damage. So, pretty solid on bosses, and also good at AoE clear, and uses stands that don't overlap with a lot of the other top tier choices, so it's really easy to build. Then there is Ho Yi, who is one of the strongest magic attackers in the game, but is going to go into A tier because, well, as a magic attacker, you're not really going to be building him on physical setups. He's still very, very good, does a ton of damage, does great single target damage, absolutely worth building. And Monkey King also goes in A tier, also a very strong stand, but as a physical attacker is a little bit more limited. The reason Helicopter got into S tier is because it's easy to build and absolutely dominant. Then we've got One Punch Master, who's really good at doing big bursts of damage if you have high physical attack. But I noticed he does struggle if you aren't able to clear the waves of enemies easily. So I'm actually going to put him into B tier, the really good but situational. He's kind of the opposite of Elf Queen. Elf Queen is good for clear, he is good for single target. Yes, his AoE does a lot, but let's be honest, you can only overkill enemies so hard, so you don't need that massive burst of damage. Next up, Robot, which I'm going to put in A tier because Robot is kind of Helicopter's magical little brother. Robot attaches energy beams to nearby enemies that ramp up over time. Unfortunately, he's a little bit close range, which is why I don't think he quite makes it into S tier, as there are times where I'm like, okay, I could use Robot, or I could use something a little bit longer range, which I'll get to very shortly. Now, early on in my gameplay, I built Skeleton King a lot, but more recently I found he isn't that useful. He summons minions, which kind of clutter the screen, and I haven't found his damage to be really competitive with some of the higher tier stands. That said, a lot of the stands used to build him don't overlap with other things, and it could be that I'm just using him wrong and he's actually really good. Next we have Valkyrie, another really strong attack stand. Valkyrie inflicts a bleed, scales well off of physical attack, easy A tier. Werewolf gives you buffs, including max health, by using his Howl. As he does true damage, he is able to do quite high damage output. I'd say probably a little less than Buddha or Helicopter, but certainly more than a lot of the stands even in A tier, since he's scaling off of 2 different stats and they only scale off of 1. In short, he's very, very good, and I highly recommend getting him even if you're just using him for buffs. Next, Wolf Knight, in my opinion, the best magic attack stand in the game, does incredible amounts of damage, has surprising amounts of coverage, and gives you HP, which helps with your survival. So, again, pretty easy S tier. And then we have Zhao Yun, who is okay. He's a pretty good single target magic attacker, but you have to need a single target magic attacker. And last up, Zhu Baizhe, who goes into A tier. I find his buffs to be quite useful. It's just that unfortunately he overlaps with Tycoon, who I do think is a little bit more powerful. That said, if you want to stun enemies, then Zhu Baizhe, great choice. Also, Pig is in pretty high demand as it's used for a lot of other combinations, including many other stands that I put in A and S tier. Again, that's why he's not quite in the S tier for me, though he is very, very good. Personally, I would be happy to build any stand in either A or S tier in most of my maps. These basically all, with the exception being that you don't really want to build Wolf Knight if there's no synergy and you're going Fizz scaling. You don't really want to build Helicopter if there's no synergy and you're going Magic scaling. Here, like Magic build, Fizz build, Fizz build, Fizz build. Here, depends. Do you need AoE? Do you need single target? Do you have good clear? Do you need Fizz scaling and have good attack speed? Do you need single target and have magic scaling? These I don't really build too much. That said, I'm sure all of these stands are viable, and I'm also sure the comments are going to be filled with reasons why, in fact, the stands that I put in C tier are the best in the game, and I'm just wrong about everything. And so that's my introduction to I Am Legion stand survivors, going over a lot of the basic mechanics, a few tips and tricks that I've picked up playing the game, and a tier list ranking all of the purple stands in my opinion. So if you found this video to be useful, do be sure to get subscribed. Don't forget to leave a like while you're down there. If you're looking for something else to watch, there's going to be a couple things up in the card and down below. For now, that's it for me today, so thank you very much for watching to the end. I'm glad you've enjoyed. I've had quite a bit of fun with Stand Survivors. It's all the things I like about an auto battler without all the things I don't like, plus it's a bullet heaven, and those are super, super easy to play and easy to recommend. And so yeah, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.